Hi, everyone, and welcome to Meet the Heads, the virtual edition. I'm Elaine Cunningham Walker, and I'm the CEO of a global educational consultancy called Everything's Education. And one of the reasons why I started Meet the Heads was because I wanted parents to meet heads of schools in the UK and the USA and Canada, so that they could understand exactly who they were, so that they could get a proper feel of the school. Because we all know that it's really hard in this current pandemic how to feel a school and how to understand how a school operates, and to also understand the spirit of the school. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my panel tonight when we will be talking about extracurricular activities. I'd like to introduce Alistair Tigray, the headmaster of Wells Cathedral School. Hi, Alistair. How are you? Good to see you.
Hello, Elaine. Good evening. Very nice to see you as well.
Great, great, great. I'm just going to introduce Rick Clark, the head of Frensham Heights School.
Good evening, Elaine. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you.
Great, 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 great. And then Chris Eustace. I hope I said your name properly. That's the assistant head for Lancing College. Did I say it properly, Chris? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Apologies. Good evening, everybody. And yes, you were pretty much correct there. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I want to say hi again to Brendan Wignall, from the headmaster from Ellesmere College.
Hi, Elaine. It's good to see you again.
Great to see you too. And last but not least, we've got Barnaby Durant, head of St. Lawrence College in Kent.
Hi, Elaine. Hi, everybody.
Hiya, nice to see you all, and thank you all for making time out of your busy schedule. I bet you must all be elated that schools are back with children.
Finally.
You're all nodding. You're all nodding.
Like, no.
And you're all nodding, going, yep. We're excited. So I'm going to kick off the questions today by speaking to each one of you and asking each one of you to just tell us a little bit about you and your school and how you started in your school. So let's kick it all off with Brendan.
Gosh. Well, thank you, Elaine. Well, talking about me is always fun and obviously very important to me. I've been headmaster at Ellesmere College for 25 years. I was once the youngest headmaster of a major public school. I'm now the longest lasting, and my current career plan is to do another 10 years and then have a think about it, because I love my job. I'm very lucky. Obviously, I was only 15 when I was appointed to be headmaster. That's enough about me. Ellesmere is far more important, and it's a place that I love and a job that I love. And my claim is that Ellesmere is a really special place. I'm delighted to be talking about co-curricular. But in a sense, I'd almost criticize your title, if I may, Elaine, because it's a bit like saying the importance of English. And yeah, of course it's important. It's absolutely core to a proper education. And at Ellesmere, we're absolutely committed that the best possible results for the individual, that's the priority, because that's the passport for the future. But to stay with that metaphor, I know a huge number of people who've got brilliant passports, but they'll spend their life in the arrivals lounge because they're useless otherwise. I'm one of them, to be honest. And what we're trying to do is to prepare people in lots of different ways. And I guess it's my job to boast a bit. So if you think that in the senior school from 13 to 18, we have 370 pupils. In the last 3 years, we've had 8 or 9 different sports where we're either national champions or had international selection. The number 3 in the world for swimming at 100 meters is a pupil who left last year from Ellesmere. So sport's a massive thing here. And the great thing about it is it teaches you failure. And as a Liverpool supporter this season, I'm experiencing that a lot. And failure is good for you in the right environment because it teaches you that it doesn't matter. And then it goes beyond the sports. Of course, we've got Duke of Edinburgh. We are an Arts Mark Platinum school, according to the Arts Council, which is a recognition of media, visual, creative arts. I suspect that Alistair at Wells can do rather better in many of the arts than us. But for a more general school, you know, our choir would be seen as cathedral standard, and we're due to sing in St. Peter's in Vienna before lockdown put the stop on that. So co-curricular, we live, eat and breathe it. And I'd go as far as saying we are very clear. If somebody only wants to study, we're the wrong place, because we'd like to turn out people in the world who are going to be useful. So that's Ellesmere, and that's me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brendan. So let's move on quickly to Barnaby.
Hi, Elaine. Thanks very much. Yeah, my name's Barney. I've got the privilege of leading St. Lawrence College. I actually grew up in Zambia and Malawi, so I started boarding at the age of 7. So for those of you listening, I understand what it's like to be on the other side of the fence in terms of living in a different country and boarding overseas from quite a young age. I'm relatively new to St. Lawrence. I'm just finishing my first year. I spent 14 years at Stowe School in Buckingham, and then went out to Hong Kong in 2012 to set up all the pastoral structures and systems in what was then the brand new Harrow International School. But St. Lawrence College is a fantastic school. It's located on the beautiful Kent coast in Ramsgate, about an hour from London. We're an all-through school, so we go from age 3 to 18 and start our boarding from year 4 upwards. We've got a very strong Christian ethos, and a genuine sense of sort of friendliness and community. That's one of the things that really attracted me to the school in the first place. We've got about 25 different nationalities in the school, and a relatively small size, similar to Brandon's just mentioned. We're about 400 in the senior school, so that's about 60 per year group. We're mostly renowned for our sport. We're national champions at boys and girls hockey, but play rugby and cricket in particular to high levels as well. But we're also a high-performance learning school, which is all about developing each individual and not setting barriers on their learning or on their performance. So our aim really is to nurture every individual to achieve their potential and add value, whether that's in the classroom, the theatre, the sports pitch, or indeed in the local community. I used to love the extracurricular side of school when I was younger, particularly sport. But I also really enjoyed being involved in plays, singing in chapel, doing debating competitions, and also gaining an appreciation of charity and service. And so, because they're all the things that I feel are really important, St. Lawrence College was an obvious choice for me when I was looking for somewhere to lead. We've got some outstanding facilities and tremendously talented sports coaches, including national athletes and Olympians, as well as staff who've coached national teams. I think it's really important that all of our pupils have the opportunity to experience the thrill of competitive sport. As has just been mentioned, it's really important to learn from defeats as well as celebrate successes, and to do both of those with respect and humility. And I think that's a really important element of it. If you're able to walk around the school today, and hopefully it won't be too long before we've got a number more people doing that, you'd all see the depth of talent on display for our art as well. I think that creativity and technical ability, I suppose the opportunity to express oneself creatively, is a vital aspect of any well-rounded education. We've also got a 400-seater theatre. We take our drama and our music very seriously. And that might not be that you're front and centre acting. It might be that you're involved in script writing, filmmaking, sound, lighting, front of house, all those sorts of elements. And similarly, from a music point of view, we've got a whole range of different elements, from jazz bands and wind bands and the sort of more formal stuff, through to ukulele ensembles or pop groups and that side of things. We've also, as part of our extracurricular programme, we've got a number of charity and service projects to ensure that our pupils understand their place within the global and the local community. I think that's a really important element. And I think it helps them develop a wider perspective on things and recognise that they do have a responsibility to society. And then finally, part of our extracurricular provision is, of course, through clubs and societies. And that's where we can really extend our pupils, their understanding, their insights, their love of learning. Whether that's through Christian Union, Medical Society, our competitive courses, university groups, or anything else like that. I think, as we all know, the world of work is changing, and it won't be uncommon for our children to have 6 or 7 different careers in their lives. So it's really important, I think, for all schools to be preparing them for that. And future employers will, of course, want excellent academic grades, and I think that's a given. But they also want team players. They want good decision makers. They want people who are able to show initiative. And I think it's really our responsibility to develop those soft skills of flexibility, of teamwork, of solution-focused approaches. And I don't think there's a better way of doing that than in an extracurricular context. And that's why we have such an emphasis on it at St. Lawrence.
Thank you so much, Barney. Now, moving on to one of my bestie schools, because you love music, but you're not just a music school, Wells Cathedral School. Please tell us all about you, Alistair, and how you became to be part of such an amazing institution.
Well, thank you, Elaine. Yeah, so I'm now in my third year here as headmaster at Wells Cathedral School. And a great privilege it is too. Wells is one of the UK's oldest schools. And in fact, we are currently celebrating our 1,112th year. We were founded as a school in AD 909 to educate the choristers of the cathedral, which we have effectively as part of our school campus. And the Cathedral of Wells, which has been called perhaps the most beautiful cathedral in England, is effectively our school chapel, and we meet every week, at least once a week, in the cathedral as a school. And so it's very much core to our being, and that Christian ethos is fundamental to the school as a whole. And we hold true to that original foundation. So we are still the school that educates the choristers of Wells Cathedral, the boys and the girls who sing almost every day in non-COVID times in the cathedral and provide their wonderful music for the worship of the cathedral. But obviously over the last millennium, the school has evolved enormously, and music is still absolutely core to what we do here at Wells, but we are much more an all-round school, and we do everything in terms of other activities that you might expect every good school to do. And I suppose, like, I would agree with one of my fellow heads who said just a moment ago that in a sense, we don't call here at Wells our activities as extracurricular, because we consider them to be as important as our academic endeavours, as our curriculum endeavours. So we prefer to refer to co-curricular. In other words, our academic endeavours and our co-curricular activities are two sides of the same coin. They're equally important in the all-round development of a child. And that's absolutely what we're interested in developing that whole child, a holistic education that stresses the importance of academic work and getting the best grades possible and the best effort in your academic work, because that opens doors to the future, but not at the expense of developing you as an individual who has real passions and interests in a whole diversity of different activities. And far from that co-curricular activity being a distraction from pupils' academic work, we firmly believe that actually it enhances their academic profile. And every year we will do an analysis of our GCSE and our A-level results. And we find year on year that those pupils who've been busiest outside of the classroom in terms of their co-curricular activities tend to do best inside the classroom. They are securing the highest grades because all the skills that they're learning in the co-curricular curriculum are helping them with their academic. The idea of time management, of independence, of teamwork, of resilience, of understanding the impact of hard work, perseverance, diligence. All of these things are skills and attributes that pupils develop through their co-curricular activity as much as they do in the classroom itself. And for us, it's really about developing passions in pupils that will carry them well beyond school. And I'm really keen to support every child who comes to Wells in terms of developing their own existing passions, but we want to put them out of their comfort zone from time to time as well, and enable them to discover new passions, perhaps passions they never even thought they might have before. And that's what drives them through school. Those are the sorts of activities that really make one of those cold, wet November days, if they know they're going to go and kick a rugby ball around, or perhaps go and play in an orchestra, or whatever else it might be, that it can be the motivation to keep them going and persevering. So cultivating passions is absolutely core to what we're doing. As you've mentioned, Elaine, music is one of our key co-curricular activities. We are an all-round school. We're a co-educational 2 to 18 boarding and day school, but we're the only music specialist school in England, which is also within the context of an all-round school. There are 4 music specialist schools in England, but we're the only one that is in the context of an all-round school. So obviously music for us is vital. It links us back to our history with the choristers, and it's grown into instrumental and vocal music across the disciplines. We have about 40 different orchestras and choirs will be rehearsing on a weekly basis. And we have some specialist musicians who are on a particular pathway where they're particularly focused on their musical interests, potentially going into the profession. But we also have what we call general musicians who just enjoy playing music, singing in choirs as part of their all-round enrichment. But because we are a music specialist school within the context of an all-round school, we have a large proportion of our pupils are not musical at all. They grow up in a very creative environment that is appreciative of music, but they may not actually be musicians themselves. So sport is just as strong. We have sport on the curriculum for every child right way through to the end of the sixth form. They'll have at least 2 game sessions every week. And that's really important for us as a way of demonstrating the importance of healthy exercise and homework and all that sort of thing. We have over 20 sports that we offer here at Wells, half of which are about competitive. We play with other schools, hockey, rugby, tennis and cricket, for example. But we have a lot of non-competitive sports as well that we offer, things like yoga and volleyball, table tennis. We even have an ultimate frisbee team, which is something that pupils love getting involved in. And then alongside that, we have all our various other outdoor learning activities. We've got our combined cadet force. We have one of the largest combined cadet force in the southwest of England with over 200 cadets, and they're able to join the Army or the Navy or the Air Force and do lots of outdoor learning through that. And we also have a very vibrant Duke of Edinburgh scheme. And again, we are one of the largest schools in the southwest of England in terms of the numbers of our pupils who participate in the Duke of Edinburgh expeditions, as well as learning about charity and service and all that kind of thing. So we hope that all together, our academic and our co-curricular offering is something which keeps our pupils busy, active, engaged, that it's complementing their academic work, but at the same time, it's enabling them to nurture those passions that we're really keen to develop in our pupils. And we hope also give them an opportunity to discover new interests, new passions, which perhaps they never thought they had, and that will propel them through their lives.
I think the tagline of this season is "You're on mute," definitely. Because I found myself busy chatting away and carrying on with the rest of the session and realized I was on mute. So we're going to start again with Rick Clark. And Chris, I will leave you till the very end, if that's okay. Perfect. Rick, please tell us about your school and how you got to be where you are right now.
Will do. Thank you, Elaine. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all. So welcome. It's lovely to, I obviously can't see you. You can see me, but I hope you're all well. It's great to join you on this evening and talk a bit about what I love, which is my school. Not me. Obviously, I can talk a bit about me, but really I want to talk about my school. But a bit about me to start with, perhaps. You may hear from my accent that I'm from Africa originally. I grew up in South Africa. Still consider myself to have African roots. So that's really important to me and my family. But I'm now an educationalist in the UK and very proud of being here and being at the school. My journey to Frensham, and I'll talk a bit about what Frensham is because it is a bit different, but was in more traditional schools. So I have worked in more traditional schools such as Wellington College and Brighton College, and I have now found out myself at a school which is a progressive school. So I'm Rick to everyone. I'm not wearing a tie, as you can see. I'm one of the only ones not wearing a tie because I never have to wear a tie at school. And none of the students do. So we are a bit different. And really, I'm really proud of the fact that we're a bit different. And having worked in more traditional schools, to find myself in a school like this where there's no school uniform, all the teachers are referred to by their first names. It's different, but I have to say, it's very refreshing and it's a wonderful way to educate. It really does reflect what the school is all about, which is about relationships. We're all about that. So the school is nearly 100 years old now. And it was founded as a response to more traditional education nearly 100 years ago. And it's been co-ed right from the beginning. And that's an important part of the school, that's been right there. And equality between the sexes has been right from the beginning of the school, has been really important. So equality and diversity are crucial to us as a school. What is important, though, is the kind of education we offer. And of course, we want every child to reach their potential, just like all the other heads tonight have said. You know, we're in the business of ensuring that children end up in a position where they can open doors to the next stage of their lives. But for me, education is about so much more. So I often talk about the fact that, as much education happens outside the classroom as inside the classroom. and that's certainly true at Frensham. Again, we approach things a little bit differently to some schools. We don't compel students to do things they don't want to do. And what I mean by that is, in some schools, there might be, all children may have to play a particular sport. We don't do that. We provide opportunities that if you like your competitive sport, you can get bucket loads of it. So if you want to be in the football team, if you want to be in the netball team, if you want to be in the basketball team, that's fantastic. We can, you're in the team and we can find lots of fixtures for you. But equally, if you want to do something non-competitive, we can find that opportunity for you too, and a vast range of them. The creative arts is a real strength at Frensham and has been right from the beginning, because we have a broad and balanced curriculum. And we've always believed in the importance of creativity across the whole curriculum. So our fine art, graphic art, and our DT has always been a real strength. And there are huge opportunities there outside the classroom too, to learn new skills and develop that. Music and drama are also fantastic at the school. We again have a wonderful theatre, 300-seater theatre, and there's an amazing opportunity for so many students to either perform in there or to be involved in some capacity backstage or others, together with the music. So the key thing is opportunities abound at a school like Frensham, and we tend to have conversations with students and try and guide them in the right direction rather than compelling them. Another aspect, we're on a beautiful campus not far from London, but lots of greenery around us, and we are real believers in outdoor education. So we encourage people to get outside as much as they can do. As others have mentioned tonight, the Duke of Edinburgh is a really important program for us. But we do a couple of things differently. We take all of our year 9s, for example, to the west coast of Scotland for 2 weeks. No technology, they're away from the comforts of home, and they embark on a community project. They learn some survival skills. They do their Duke of Edinburgh Bronze Award while they're up there. It's an amazing opportunity, and for us, it's a fantastic, almost a rite of passage for students. We have a lot of other trips too. We take trips all over the world, and we really do believe in the value of learning outside the classroom and engaging with that. But I'll return to the fact that as a progressive school, it's all about conversations and relationships with students about what's best for them and how we can help them become the best version of themselves, because that's really all we want as an education. That's all from me. I look forward to answering any of your questions. Thank you very much, Elaine.
You're more than welcome, Rick. And last but not least, Chris from Lancing College.
Hi there, good evening, and I promise not to go on mute again and try and talk like that. So hello and welcome everybody. My name is Chris Eustace and I'm the assistant head in charge of the co-curricular. My history so far has been in boarding schools, and I was particularly pleased to be able to come to Lancing. This is my 4th year now, because my job is to head up the co-curricular program. When I first started, I asked the headmaster, I said, look, I know this is a new role, that you're very keen to promote the co-curricular more than just from the director level, but up into the senior management level. What are you going to do to back that up? And he said, well, okay, so we are actually in the process of changing our timetable. So that means that the co-curricular is no longer an after-school activity or a before-school activity. It's within the school day. So from 4 till 6 o'clock every day during the course of the week, that is set aside for activities time. But it's more than just activities. It's where we hold our services, Combined Cadet Force, Duke of Edinburgh and Scouts. You may have heard from the other schools as well. We do our music, our drama, our dance. We do sports as well. We have extra sessions for sports to go with that. But in the activities program itself, we're running over 120 activities every single week, which is great because it keeps me busy, but it also provides many opportunities for the pupils to try different things, whether that's exploring old passions or trying new ones. And one thing I'm very keen in my role here is to ensure that by the time the pupils leave the college, they have found that thing that works for them, whether it's on the sporting pitch, in one of the main faculties like musical drama, or maybe it's something different, whether it's in a chess club, film club, or even our specialty urban knitting club, which is surprisingly popular. And to encourage students to engage, we offer a carousel program in their first year where they get to go to the farm, they get to try fives, fencing, and as you can hear, we're quite a traditional boarding school in that respect. But we offer as many things as we possibly can because we want the pupils to try new things, to find their passions and spend time with like-minded individuals. but it's more than just about sort of having fun beyond the classroom. It's about personal growth. It's about personal development. It's about communication, leadership, and working with one another. And that is at its core of what I aim to supply while the pupils are here. Opportunity, engagement, and community. And like the others have said, that could be on the sports field. Football is our flagship sport here. We've got fantastic pitches, beautiful cricket pitches as well. And one of the nicest things you can see on an afternoon is whether pupils might have some downtime if they're not doing activity, they will gather themselves, go down and kick a football around on an afternoon together. And that is a lovely thing to see during the course of the working day. We also offer many trips as well to supplement our activities program. They could be national trips, international trips, and whether that's DV expeditions, CCF, it could be a Spanish exchange, it could be a Cyprus camp for tennis, or it could be our biennial month-long trip to Malawi, doing some cultural and charitable work out there. Swimming is also on the up at the college. We have a couple of national swimmers at the moment, and if you come as an elite swimmer, then we have our morning and afternoon and evening training package to work with you. So if you are in the boarding house, then we will get you up and we'll get you down there for your early morning swimming session or dry land training and support you along the way. And with our elite sportsmen and women, we have a program set up so that during your lessons where you're not actually involved in a subject, you can get some one-to-one dedicated coaching time with our directors of sport and enable you to be the best sportsman and women that you could possibly be. One thing I forgot to say at the beginning, though, was that we do have pupils here at the college from 13 to 18, day and boarding co-educational, but we also have our Little Lancing nursery, where you can go there from 18 months, plus 2 prep schools, which cater for our younger personnel. Essentially, that Lancing, what we're looking for is we're looking for the ability to provide students with that scholarly ambition, integrity and kindness. Those are our buzzwords at the moment, but they definitely underpin our ethos of what we try to do here. But that's it from me. Thanks, Elaine.
Thank you so much, everyone, for telling us a little bit about your school. Now, anybody who knows Elaine knows that I don't ask conventional questions. So what I heard from a lot of you was that you are preparing these children through, and I'll use Brendan's word, they're not extracurricular activities, and Alistair's words, they're co-curricular activities. Now, some parents might feel that these subjects are just, PE or debating or chess club. They're just things that they're just going to learn at school. They're never going to need them out. In this current climate and what's gone on over the past year, do you think that you haven't been able to have sports per se, as we know? Do you think that those are the skills that you get in those kind of subjects that are going to give the children more resilience than an English lesson, a maths lesson, going to give them more grit to be able to survive the world that they have ahead of them? And I'm going to pass that question first to Chris, because you said that you're the champion of extracurricular. So
I tried to be the champion, but thank you. Absolutely. I mean, in the lockdown, we made sure that there were enough activities to keep them entertained and engaged. But absolutely, when they're not out in the sports field and they're doing other pursuits, it could be robotics, where they're practicing problem-solving skills, plus the resilience that you mentioned as well, or it could be anything else along those lines. It is about getting those pupils to try different things, try learning new skills, working with one another, and enabling those soft skills that I heard mentioned earlier to come to the fore more. Because in lockdown, a lot of the pupils were feeling isolated and remote, and it was the co-curricular sessions where they could come together in a non-academic way, or academic if they were pursuing the medics group or the law group, where they are focusing about their future career, but where they could come together and sort of in a slightly more informal way, still go through that educational process, just not through the traditional educational channel. I think you're muted.
I know, I'm so irritated by the whole thing. But Rick, I'm going to come to you because you said something about being an unconventional school, and I've got a question for you. But I want to throw out this first question to Alistair, Barney, and Brendan, if you could just keep it really short for me, because I know how you all guys like to talk. When you get up, you say women talk, but you like to talk. So please tell me in that order who I said what your thoughts are on co-curricular, moving the children ahead in the future. Who should I go to first? Barney, then Alistair, then Brendan, please.
Thanks, Len. Yeah, briefly, I think you've mentioned lockdown. I think for me, one of the key things about lockdown is that lack of the extracurricular, the co-curricular. Now, of course, as I'm sure many schools have, we've had Strava challenges, we've had all sorts of, parents versus pupils and how far you can run or cycle this week, and staff versus families and all sorts of things like that, which has definitely helped. But I think for me, the one thing that COVID or that COVID has taught us is that schools are not just about lessons. And frankly, we've been doing lessons face to face through Zoom or Teams or whatever since lockdown started. And I think, there's lots of talk in the papers about lost education and so on. I don't think that's the issue at all. I think our children are absolutely there with education. But what they have missed is that teamwork, is that, the chats as you're standing in the dinner queue, even the living with other people and that understanding of tolerance and how important it is to sort of learn and get on with others, even if they're perhaps not your really close friends. The emotional intelligence that you get from that, the highs of winning a match, the lows of losing one, and then recognizing that even if you have lost it, you've still got to go and shake the opposition by the hand and say, great game, and have a chat, and then once the match is over, it's back to respectful relationships and so on. So absolutely, I think COVID has really brought to the fore how important everything else outside the classroom is, because that's the thing that's really been missing.
Thank you so much, Alistair. I know I don't want to place too much emphasis, but you are a musical school, and how have the challenges been with these extra co-curricular activities, as you rightly said, and how have you been able to facilitate that? And also, in the way that you facilitated it, do you feel it's prepared the children for the future to come?
I think absolutely, Elaine. And actually, I know there have been a lot of negatives about the pandemic, and all of us have been challenged by it. But I think we're also very conscious that there have been a lot of positives as well that have come out of this extraordinary year and more now that we've all been experiencing. You won't be surprised to hear that because of our history, because of our particular focus as a music specialist school, one of our core values here at Wells is creativity. But we want to see creativity not just in our creative arts, in our drama and our dance and in our music. We want to see it across the curriculum. We want to see creativity in our physics lessons, in our maths lessons. We want to see creativity in our sport. And nothing pleases me more than when I see the director of sport and the director of music talking together about how they can use strategies in terms of the delivery of their respective skills and use creative ways of delivering that. And I think one thing that COVID and the lockdown and the remote learning period has forced us all to do is just think again about how we deliver our lessons and our education, and to think outside of the box. And that's exactly what co-curricular activities do. They ask you, they compel you to think outside the box and to approach ideas and problems and challenges in different ways. And I think I've been so impressed by how creative our pupils have been in their responses. And some of the things we've kept, as other schools on the call have said, we've kept things going through remote challenges and running to Wellington, New Zealand virtually and back and all this kind of thing. But I think that one of the most important things really has been this idea that we've demonstrated a real creativity, and we've been compelled to think about education in a different way. And because co-curricular activity is so important in our schools already, I think our pupils have been better prepared for the challenge of learning their academic lessons online, because they have all those skills about fleetness of mind and thinking outside the box and teamwork and just coming at things in different ways. precisely because they're active in the co-curricular curriculum as much as they are on in the academic side. And so I think that has been a real advantage, a real positive of this, and something I know we at Wells are really keen to harness yet further as we come out of the pandemic, and we don't lose sight of that kind of positive that has emerged as a result of the challenge and the creativity we've had to show in our response.
Thank you so much, Alistair. I think that was a really insightful answer, and it gave most of the parents watching food for thought, because obviously most of the times parents just think or have the idea that these extra things that they do, obviously if you're in a state school, you don't get all of these opportunities, which is why I use the tagline extracurricular, because if you're coming from the state department to the independent school, it is an extracurricular. Now, Brendan, tell me what you think, please.
Well, I can repeat the same sort of vibe in terms of what we've learned from COVID and the advantages that Barney and Alistair have done, but it would just be the same thing again, and they've shown more insight than I could ever do in terms of that analysis anyway. So I'm just going to go back to what you said first, Elaine, and you mentioned resilience, and parents thinking, oh well, it's just an add-on. And I know the customer's always right, but no, the customer isn't right. It's not an add-on, and it goes back again to what I said at the start. If you really believe that, then choose a different school. But to be fair to my colleagues, you wouldn't be choosing one of these schools. I think one of the great tragedies of private education is seeing parents pay money so that their children will pass exams, which they probably have passed anyway. And I'm going to put it pretty directly, there are far too many people in life who've got all the qualifications you need, but they're useless. And I know that because I'm one of them. And people always think I'm joking, but I have 5 A-levels and 2 degrees in philosophy. But I've had to overcome scholarship and become a useful member of society. I've failed, but I'm better than I used to be. And I've learnt lots on the way, Elaine. I can tell you that putting diesel in a petrol engine is not a great idea. I can recommend Emirates for traveling, because when you try to check into a flight with your son's passport, they're really nice to you. Still send you home to get the right one. And defrosting a freezer with a hammer and a screwdriver falls into the category of you can be more effective than you would wish. Now, that wasn't all the same day, and I'm possibly being a little hard on myself, but I believe absolutely passionately that in this country, once you move into the middle class sphere of education and the paid for sphere of education, forget all the stuff about, oh, you need to be literate. Of course you need to be literate. There's a huge problem in this country for the less well-off. But for the well-off, the problem is they're not prepared for life because they're not resilient, because they've not had the knocks that actually all of our schools here provide, and they've been put through exams. And actually the really toxic thing about that sort of approach is that it's a very limited set of winners. We offer the IB. If somebody gets 45 out of 45 in the IB here, which is an amazing result, we're saying, yeah, it's a good start. What else have you got? And if we get somebody who gets 2 E's at A level here and they've worked hard, it's, yeah, but they'll have achieved in so many other things. And all our pupils need knocks, because life is brilliant and wonderful, even at these challenging times, as long as you're prepared for it. And if you're in a school or you're a parent who thinks it's just about passing exams and all the rest is an add-on, those children are not going to be prepared. Some of them might make it through good luck, but they're not going to be prepared.
Thank you very much, Brendan. Rick, I would pose that question to you. However, you did say that you're not a traditional school. And I know that a lot of parents watching here like the formalities of a uniform. They like the formalities of the traditional structure. They struggle with calling a teacher by their first name. At least there should be sir or miss, or, Mr. or Mrs. They believe that's training them to be respectful. So this is an extracurricular question, but how, being a non-traditional school, and I know there are a couple of parents on here who are going to a prep school before going on to Lancing, who struggled with a school that suddenly changed their uniform policy and said no school uniform. And the mother said to me, well, how do I know that children are going to learn discipline? First of all, I need to spend more money on clothes. And secondly, I don't think they're going to understand formalities. So how do you address that with the fact that you're not a traditional school? So if you're not a traditional school, do you offer traditional extracurricular activities? I think that's my question to you. And that's why I left you till the end.
Thank you, Len. Yeah, I don't think I could add anything to all of my esteemed colleagues here on the benefit of co-curricular, and I certainly agree with all of it. Yeah, let me address that. I think it's a really interesting one, and it's something that I think the question I would ask is, why do we need uniform, and why do we need to call people sir and ma'am? The world's changing, and COVID has certainly shown us that too. I think there have been rapid advances in the way things are being looked at. I think in the way we look at education and how we educate children. I wondered when I first came to the school. I thought, well, I wonder how behaviour will be. But actually, I didn't need to be worried at all, and all the research I'd done suggested I didn't need to be worried. Genuinely, my two children are at the school. I wouldn't have chosen a school that I didn't think would work for me and my family. I am used to more traditional upbringing, South African upbringing as well, as you know, and it challenged some of my preconceptions. But actually, it's been amazing. We treat children with real respect because we let them call us by our first names, so they get to know us as people, and we get to know them as people, and they value that. We talk about respect all the time as a core value, and I have had no more behavioural problems in this school than I've experienced in any other more traditional school. Uniform, yeah, I would say it saves parents a lot of money not having to buy uniform, because the children can just wear their own home clothes, whatever they're comfortable in. When they play sports, they have a uniform, so that's the one area in the school where they do wear a uniform because they have to play competitive fixtures against other schools. But our approach then, as I mentioned, to things like the co-curricular, being unconventional, we don't compel children to do things they don't want to do. So all the children who might arrive in year 9, for example, we're not a rugby playing school. We never really have been. We're a football school. But every now and again, we get children who say, we'd like to play rugby. So 2 years ago, we actually had some boys playing sevens rugby because they were very, very keen. We found a member of staff who would coach them, and we found some fixtures for them. So we try to fit around the interests and skills of the students in front of us and adapt for them there. And so if you want your competitive sport, you can play it. If you don't want to, that's absolutely fine. But we expect you to be physically active because we believe in it. So we then find other things for you to do. And we've got an amazing campus with mountain biking, and that's growing in popularity. Climbing is a really strong tradition of climbing here, with an amazing climbing wall and high ropes course in the forest here. So we find other things for students to do. As long as they're active, we're happy. So I think that's probably how we would class unconventional.
See, that's really interesting, because, and this is something for the whole panel to have a think about, in that we're all about making sure that our children's well-being and wellness is looked after, and we don't let them do things that they don't want to do. Are we now raising children who are going to become adults who, if something doesn't sit well with me, I'm just not going to do it? And do we think that is the right mentality to have going into adulthood? Because sometimes as adults, we have to do things that we don't like. Sometimes even going into work. But we need to go into work to pay those bills. So I think my question to all of you is that, are we raising a generation of people who, if they want to stay in bed for the whole year, then that is fine. They do things that they don't just want to do, and us allowing them to do that in school, is that a message, or is that a premise that we're allowing them to continue thinking that that's what happens when I go to university and I don't go to lectures, I'm not going to get my grades? Are we setting them up for university, for even apprenticeships? Because if you don't go to work, you will not stay in work. So what are your thoughts on that? I will go to Barney.
Thanks, Lane. And inevitably, I'm sure we'll all have slightly different views on this. I think, again, if we look at two elements of it, the extracurricular side gives you those opportunities to push pupils into things that they wouldn't ordinarily do. And I would probably argue the opposite, that we have a policy where everybody tries everything. And there are compulsory sports, and it doesn't matter whether you're in the A team or the F team, you'll still have a go at that sport, and you learn those skills, because ultimately, I think particularly with younger children, they're always going to be brilliant at something, but we've got to find what that is. And you can only really find what that is when you expose them to a whole raft of different opportunities. And so actually pushing them into all of those different elements, giving them an opportunity to find something that they're particularly good at, I think is really important. But also, I think it is important that we do have an element of compulsion. I think it is important that you learn to play things, to come out of your comfort zone. That if sport is your thing, you actually also get up on a stage and face that potential fear, and realize that also gives you another string to your bow. It gives you another skill that you might need. And I think the workplace, as you've mentioned, is a really important one. It's why boarding is so important, in my opinion. You can't just walk into an office and say, "Oh, I don't really like that person. I'm going to go, work over there if that's all right." "Oh, I don't want to work with that group." It doesn't work like that. And in the same sense with boarding, you're living with people, you're living in different rooms, you're then going out and kicking a ball around in the evenings, and you're learning how to interact. You're learning to, as I mentioned earlier, the emotional intelligence of living with somebody else. And I think they're absolutely vital skills to then set you up to go off into the world of work. And that resilience that comes from learning about defeat, learning that things are hard, learning that actually if you want to progress in a sport or an activity, you've got to put the effort in, otherwise you won't get there. I mean, I'm forever saying to my children, just try your best. I'm sure we all do. It's about going out there and putting yourself out there, and giving everything your best shot. So I think I would probably argue that the sort of education, certainly here at St Lawrence, that we're offering, is one that is designed to tap into all of those strengths that people have, to give them the opportunities to find out what their strengths are, but also encouraging them to take part in lots of different things, because that similarly develops their strengths as well. You're on mute again, Elaine, I'm afraid.
God. Today is a very interesting day. I'm usually on the money, but today I don't know what's happening. So did anybody have anything to add to that eloquent answer by Barney? Yes. Go ahead, Brendan, then Chris, then Alistair. You're on mute.
I nearly mouthed something rude then. How annoying. I think I agree with Barney. We here are definitely not preparing people for a life of indolence and excessive choice. I think that the view here is that I 100% respect children and our children as much as I respect our adults. And that should go without saying, but actually that's a relatively recent development in schools, I suspect. But to be a bit eccentric and to quote Aristotle, virtue is developed through habit, and our job is to develop children's virtues through habit, and that can include all sorts of virtues. And I'm sure that Rick's talked about creativity, Alistair's talked about creativity. I think that the society has largely grown out of the idea that creativity is about just doing it. Creativity is built on rigorous discipline and rigorous self-discipline, and it's our job to encourage our pupils to be rigorously self-disciplined. As they get older, certainly at Ellesmere, they get more and more choice within an organized framework. I had two children. My son seemed to spend all his time playing rugby. My daughter spent all the time making films and acting. But when they were 13, they were following a common program because that was good for them. So I think there is a real danger that you've identified that in the wider world, maybe they're not being prepared for anything suitable for life because there is too great an indulgence. But there's a difference between respecting someone and recognizing the distance they have to go to become adults and indulging them. And it's about respect, developing their habits, and then enabling them to use those habits in a free and creative way.
I love that. Respect and not raising them in an environment of indulgence. I do like that. Chris, what do you have to say on that?
Well, unfortunately, Brendan took most of what I was going to say from me, but thank you anyway, Brendan. What I will just say is that before I came to Lancing, I was a boys' boarding house master. And there were many times when the boys would just go, "Sir, I don't fancy rugby today. I don't fancy going to my activities. It's wet, it's cold, I just don't want to do it." Part of our philosophy here at Lancing was, as it was when I was a housemaster, which is go, get out there, you've made a commitment, you need to fulfill that and take responsibility, be accountable for your choices. But the majority of times they would come back and say, "Actually, so I really enjoyed that. I made a great tackle today," or "I finally managed to do something I hadn't done before." And actually celebrating those moments, just like Brendan was saying, it's about creating those habits of going, actually, if I do go, I will probably come back with something positive from it. So the more that we can encourage that as a good habit, and also, be aware that they are teenagers. Their first line of defense might be, "No, I'm a bit too tired today, I'm a bit too busy." But that little bit of nudging, they do appreciate it in the long run, because they come out knowing that actually engagement really does have its benefits.
So you heard it here, guys. Engagement does have its benefits. And I'm going to take that back. I'm not going to use the word guys, because everybody's got to be correct now. So you heard it here, everybody, that engagement has its benefits. So Alistair, tell us what your thoughts are.
Well, I suppose my thoughts are very similar to my colleagues who've spoken already. I mean, I think one of the things that I'm very conscious of as a head teacher, as a teacher, is that we're all in this for the long game. And I very much see what we're doing with our pupils here at Wells, and I'm sure in all our schools, is that we're not preparing them for the next immediate hurdle. We're preparing them for life after school. And for me, I always talk about how we're going to get a pupil to the age of 25, that kind of point in their life when they are absolutely standing on their own 2 feet, and they are making their own independent way in the world. They have completed their formal education, most probably, and they are beginning to absolutely forge their own way and make their own decisions. And so what we're doing as educationalists, I think, is sowing seeds which will often come to fruition, maybe not while they're with us in our schools, but certainly later on in life. And that seed might flower when they're 20, when they're 25, it might flower when they're 55. The whole point is that what we're doing in school is we're giving them experiences, and we are opening their horizons with a view to that becoming something very real for them, in some instances immediately, but in other instances very much further down the line. And so I very much take the view that we need to take a balanced approach, that everything we're trying to do is create an environment where pupils can be self-disciplined and independently minded, because that is the way you make it as an individual in the world. But we've got to be able to, as it were, teach them those skills. Those aren't skills that we just pick up automatically. We have to be encouraged to develop those skills. But I think also we have to be coerced to develop those skills on occasion. And so the way we set up the curriculum here at Wells is it is a compulsory part of every child's education that they will, for example, do sport every day, 2 days a week. And they will we have on every person's timetable a co-curricular time when they have to sign up for some kind of co-curricular activity in the event. So that's our kind of coercion. But what we then do is we have a whole raft of voluntary opportunities at lunchtimes and after school. And what we find is that our pupils are streaming to those voluntary occasions, times when they don't have to set aside time to be involved, but because they've got the appetite for it from their other activities, they are absolutely desperate to get stuck in a voluntary capacity. And so for me, it's absolutely about that kind of twin approach of encouragement, support, and enthusiastic promotion, alongside coercion, and developing those skills that we believe to be so important in terms of self-discipline and independence.
Elaine, would I be able to add a little bit to what Alistair's just mentioned? Because I think it's a really, really important point that he's made there. And we haven't really spoken much about well-being yet, but we're all aware, particularly with COVID, how important it is to look after yourself. And I think so much of what we're doing now is instilling really good habits for the future. So I love cycling. My wife will sometimes say to me, "Oh, just go for a cycle," when I'm a bit grumpy. And I need that personally. I think a lot of us need an outlet, whether it's a creative outlet, whether it's to do some Pilates or yoga, whether it's to draw, to paint. All of these sorts of skills are given to us at school, and they're the things that are there when we really need them. And I think increasingly the problems with coronary heart disease and the increase in that, actually having a really good extracurricular program at school and giving each of those children the tools that they'll need to promote their own well-being in the future is absolutely fundamental. And I think we've probably seen that now more than ever.
Thank you so much for that. And I think we have 4 minutes left, and I think we've addressed this, but I wanted to go back to Rick and explain to the parents who are watching the benefits of not having a uniform and not being in a traditional school. What kind of people do you roll out? What kind of institutions do they then go on to? Are they more creative? Because in this particular pandemic, everybody's talking about the rise of the creative student. To be honest, I don't know what that is, but I need somebody to explain that to me, because I think that everybody is creative in their own right. I know friends who are, medics, but they play the piano like something else, or they de-stress with art. So I just need to understand, what is a creative student? Is that the kind of child that or the adults that you say goodbye to when they're 18, 19? Please tell us.
Thank you, Dan. I mean, I think that the real benefit of the education that all the schools represented here offer, is that we prepare children for life and for a diversity of careers and paths. I'm delighted that we do place a great emphasis on the creative arts, and that's a real strength of the school. What's interesting is that we have more students who then at A-level choose to study science or social science subjects and go off to do that at university. There's a real range here. I visited America to go and catch up with a whole lot of our old French Shamians, as we call them, about 18 months ago. And it was fascinating to meet the diversity. There are people who are doctors, people who work in public healthcare, people who are BBC journalists, someone who runs the Carnegie Hall in New York, people who work in finance. So really, they're prepared for anything they want. I would say, whatever you want, you'll get it, and we'll push you in that direction. We don't pigeonhole and say you should all be going off to Russell Group universities at all. We say what is right for you. We will find that pathway. And if it's an apprenticeship, fantastic. If it's Oxford or Cambridge, brilliant. We'll prepare you for that. That's the benefits of an all-round school. And the co-curricular program absolutely feeds into all of that, as well, as I know all the other heads would agree.
Thank you so much, Rick. And actually, the answer that you gave was absolutely spot on. I've had a parent just text me and say, really loved the answer. Now, before we round up, I just need to know, let everybody know that if you're interested in any of these schools or any of the schools that we've spoken to before, please shoot us an email to hello@everythingseducation.com, and we will put you in the right direction of the school. Now, quickly, I've had a question just come through that says that, is there availability for September 2019? I'm just going to go round the screen, September 2019. Chris, I don't even want to hear from you, Chris, because every day Diana tells me that there's a waiting list. Yes, Chris. So go on, Chris, go on.
There are actually a few places for Year 9 and Year 12 entry in September, yes.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Rick?
Yeah, same as Chris, a few spaces in Year 9 and Year 12 entry for this September.
Perfect. Brendan?
I'm a bit confused by the 2019 bit, but we're happy to go back inside.
2019. That just tells you that, I've missed out a whole year that I don't even want to talk about. So 2021.
The answer is yes.
Thank you so much, Brendan. Barney?
Yeah, we still have places at senior level, but probably more spaces at the junior level.
Okay, thank you, Barney. Alistair?
Yes, we do have places, and although we have some of our official deadlines, as it were, for some of our music specialist places have passed, we actually always welcome an application at any point in the year. So, yeah, we do have spaces.
Okay, brilliant. And before we go, I've had a question from a mother. This is more for the IB schools, whose son is currently doing IB in Ghana. and has done his first year, but obviously wants to transfer over here. So he's done year 12. What are your thoughts on him starting in year 13? Is it better for him to restart year 12 or to come in year 13? What are your thoughts? And this is for the IB schools, because she's only looking for an IB school.
Well, we're IB. There's an awful lot of it depends in the answer, Elaine. Statistically speaking, it's likely that it would be more sensible to restart year 12, I would say, because the chances of matching all the same higher level and standard level subjects and the chances of them matching in the same order, they're relatively small. Never say never, we'd certainly look at it, but it's a big ask, particularly given that the IB is effectively a 5-term course.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Anybody else want to respond? And then I will say thank you so much to all of you. No, thank you all so much for attending the Meet the Heads virtual event. Really appreciated you giving out your time tonight. And like I said, parents, anybody that's interested in any of the schools, they have said it themselves. Elaine didn't say it, that they have spaces for 2021, not 2019. I clearly wanted to erase a whole year, but that's absolutely fine. Or relive the year, I don't really know. But please do get in touch. And I want to say thank you to Alistair, Rick, Chris and Barney and Brendan. Thank you so much for everything that you've provided there. And I think it was a really enriching conversation about co-curricular activities, but they're not really co-curricular activities. They're activities that will set us up and our children for life. Great to see all of you. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Elaine. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.